Sat Shri Akal, I hope you're all doing really well. So I'm doing something a little different today. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I love reading. I go through about 4 to 5 books on average a month. So I have actually set myself a reading goal of 50 books this year. And I did think it was a little odd that I share a lot of spoiler-free reviews on my Instagram, and I share regular updates of what I'm reading, what I'm enjoying, and I don't seem to have transferred that over to my YouTube channel yet. So I thought I will do a little wrap up of everything I read in May and just my thoughts on the books, and hopefully this will be like a regular thing. So yeah, please do let me know in the comments if you enjoy it, but otherwise let's get to it. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. So this was actually the chosen read for my book club. If you're not aware, I run a book club, and once a month I will send out a poll with a theme for that month, and I will get all the girls to vote on a book. So this was actually our chosen read. For the theme I'd chosen was romance. I thought I'd sort of delve into other themes, other genres of books, because I am a thriller hoe. I love thrillers. So the theme this was voted under was romance. Now I'm going to be honest, I don't actually read a lot of romance. I think the only thing that can really be counted as romance that I've read is Everything Leads to You, and that was part of Pride Month last year, that I'd put together a list of books for the girls to vote on, and that happened to be one of them, and it was a very sort of romancy book. I wasn't that keen on it. And also Outlander, but I guess I enjoy Outlander more because of the time travel and like the historical fiction more than the romance. I don't know why, it's just I can't really get through romance books quite as quickly as I can, say, thrillers or sci-fi or historical fiction, which is another favourite genre of mine. So this one was me trying to expand my horizons, and I think maybe it was hyped a little bit too much for me, because this is everywhere on TikTok, and apparently it's actually a Kylo Ren and Rey fanfic, just sort of rebranded as a romance book. So that tends to put a lot of people off, but it also puts people onto the book. So I don't know, you tell me, you decide. So with my book club, I think we all sort of had the same view of the book, that it was a very easy read, very simple read. We all got through it really quickly. It flows really nicely. The only thing I wasn't expecting was the 3 chapters dedicated to a very detailed sex scene. I'm not a prude in any way. You know, the scenes that come out of Outlander as well, but it was very unexpected. It sort of went from a 0 to 100. So I was expecting maybe sort of like Bridgerton season 2 vibes, where there is a slow burn and you have a dramatic sex scene just to put an end to all that sexual tension, whereas this one just felt like there was a slow burn and it was slowly getting to that point, and then all of a sudden it was bang, and they're doing absolutely everything you could possibly think of, and it's been described in the most detail. So some people might actually really like that. For me and the girls in my book club, we were just really taken aback from it. One of the girls was actually reading it on the train and said she had gone really red, and you know what? I do not envy her. That was my worst fear, that if a scene like that came up while I was reading this in the office and I took it with me, I would be mortified. Luckily, I was at home for most of it. I did finish it in a couple of sittings, but otherwise I actually really enjoyed it. It's quite an easy read. So our main character here, Olive, she has recently come out of a relationship with her boyfriend. The boyfriend apparently is a lovely guy. It just happened to not work out. Soon after, she realizes that her best friend, her absolute adored best friend, this is someone that she would risk everything for, is actually really into this ex. So to make her best friend think that she's over this ex, so the best friend can actually get with the ex, and because she sees them as a couple much more, she kisses the first guy in the corridor, and it just so happens to be a very, I don't want to say hated, but a very sort of stern, strict professor that everyone seems to want to pick a bone with. That's the guy she happens to kiss to try and prove to her best friend that she is over her ex-boyfriend, and that her best friend should feel free to make a move. So as the story progresses, this professor actually isn't all too mad about the kiss. He thinks it's great and they should pretend to have this relationship, and he's happy to get on board with pretending this relationship so that Olive's best friend can date her ex-boyfriend. So it just turns into a series of, it's not quite enemies to lovers, it's more that this guy is incredibly grumpy and he's just only nice to her. Only she gets to see the nice side of him, the soft side of him, of sort of like intimate contact. So they actually start seeing each other in more social settings as well, just so everyone's aware that they're dating. And it does all seem a little bit elaborate, just so her best friend could see that she's over her ex. It does seem a little bit extra, but I guess that's the fun of the book. That's what makes it almost like movie-like. It doesn't seem very real life. But yeah, I would give this a 4 stars out of 5. I think it's a really nice, easy read and just something nice and playful when you don't feel like thinking too much into a book while you're reading. It's just something that flows beautifully and it'll leave you smiling. Next, we have a book that was gifted to me by my mother-in-law at Christmas. So this wasn't what I expected. I think the way my mother-in-law described it to me is the way that the seller had described it to her, which is that the author had spent 8 years basically following and interviewing as many women as possible to get a very diverse, eye-opening sort of collection of stories of women as a whole. What this actually turned out to be is, so the author has actually been interviewing a lot of women for 8 years, but she has just chosen 3 to follow. So this wasn't exactly the sort of academic portrayal of women as a whole I was expecting. This actually turned out to be more of sort of a juicy portrayal of 3 women's sex lives. So I mean, very bang on to the title, but it just wasn't exactly what I was expecting. So the book actually follows 3 women. Okay, so the 3 women, just to introduce you to them. First one, Maggie. She has an affair with a married teacher when she was quite young, and we sort of follow her journey throughout the book of how the relationship developed and sort of the aftermath and so on. Second one is Lena, who is having an affair behind her very emotionally detached husband's back, and again how that progresses and the aftermath. And then the third woman is Sloane, who has sex with lots of different people because her husband likes to watch, and again we see how that progresses and the aftermath. So in that sense I think it was quite interesting. It's just, my problem with the book is, so I would still give this 4 stars out of 5, maybe 3. I think 4 might be a bit of a push. I would still give this maybe at 3 stars because it is a good read as in how the stories progress if you sort of take the reality out of it, and if you take out, I think my problem is the fact that this book is portrayed as a feminist novel, and it just doesn't feel very feminist to me because all 3 women's sex lives are controlled by men. With Maggie, it was her married older teacher taking advantage of her, and later you will see, small spoiler, but she does take him to court later on in life. And with Lena, I feel like it's also the husband that is controlling her in a sense, and also the man that she isn't having an affair with. You'll sort of see that develop, but he very much had full control of the situation. And with Sloane, she is essentially just having sex with other people because her husband likes to watch. This wasn't a decision she made herself. She is essentially doing it to make her husband happy. So I think for that reason, I'm a bit iffy with it. But I mean, if you kind of take away the things that it's marketed as, it would be a really good book. I think it just, when you go into it knowing that the author spent 8 years interviewing women and has done a lot of research behind this book, you kind of expect something a little bit more diverse and something to really get to the core of being a woman, something very eye-opening and fresh. That's what I was expecting, not sort of like a gossipy look into 3 women's sex lives. So I think that's why it fell a little bit short for me, but it's definitely not what I was expecting. But yeah, I think if you take away all the tags that it is marketed to you as, such as a feminist novel and so on, if you take all of that away, strip it back to its bare bones, it's actually a really good, easy read. If you kind of think of it as not real life, and all the dramatic elements of all these women that the author would have interviewed, all those details coming together into just 3 women, I think it does make quite a fun read. This one. Boy, I'm still not over this book. It is so good and so different from other Colleen Hoover books. So I've only read 2 other Colleen Hoover books. I think the first one was It Ends With Us, and the second one was Ugly Love. So I think with Colleen Hoover books, she does a lot of romance, but then also tackles another issue with the romance book. So with It Ends With Us, I think that was more based on obviously domestic abuse, and with Ugly Love, I think it tackles sort of life-changing grief in a really human way. So this one was completely different to what I was expecting. I didn't actually read the blurb for this before I jumped in, but I will probably just sort of sum it up for you or read the blurb for you just to give you a brief idea. I think the best thing is to go into this without knowing what to expect, because it's so different from her other books. But this is definitely more of a thriller with a little bit of romance and sex thrown in, but mainly it's just an absolute mind. Okay, so basically our story starts with Loan, who is a struggling writer, and she is practically on the brink of financial ruin when luckily the universe sends her the husband of a very famous author, Verity Crawford, and the husband is on the team to scout out a new author that can finish his wife's unfinished work. So basically Verity has had a accident, a medical emergency. We're not sort of aware of the details early on, but she's had some sort of medical emergency where she can no longer finish the rest of her series. And she is obviously, as I mentioned, a very famous author, so people are sort of expecting these books to come out soon. And luckily Loan is there. Loan is there to finish it up. Apparently the team that is looking for Verity's replacement or sub are very impressed with the writing. They think that she's the right person to be able to continue the series and for it to flow really nicely. So in order for this to happen, Loan actually moves into the Crawford house to just get a feel of the space Verity is in, and also go through all her notes and so on, just to be able to know where to start with the book. Now what happens while she is in Verity's office looking for notes and trying to search through things, she finds a manuscript that has never been published by Verity, and in it are contained some very creepy and bone-chilling admissions. So while all of this is going on and Loan is expected to pick up where Verity left off with the writing, she's also discovering a side to Verity that no one is really aware of. So we just sort of go through the book as everything progresses around that. It is very creepy, and just a trigger warning, it does contain quite detailed child abuse, so just be wary of that. And if whatever you do, don't read this at night, because firstly you will not be getting any sleep, and secondly it is so creepy. You do not want to be reading this at night. I think I had to close my blinds because I was reading it at 5. I was just so worried someone was going to pop up. But otherwise, what a book. And I'm so jealous of anyone that gets to read this for the first time, because wow, I can't wait until this is made into a film. I really hope they make it into a film, because this would be so freaking good. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Like, the grip it has on you after you've finished it is incredible. I think this is the only book I've read where it has jump scares. You know, you get jump scares in films. Like, I was getting jump scares from this book. That's how creepy it was, and how well written it was in parts, to actually feel that shiver down your spine. So I absolutely loved it. I think it's so different to what Colleen Hoover has sort of published in the past. This is absolutely incredible. I really hope she kind of puts through a few more like this, like thrillers, because it's so well done. So I will give this a 5 out of 5 stars. It is fantastic. This one is another 5-star from me. I absolutely devoured this. I thought it was so well done. So this author has actually written Little Fires Everywhere. I've watched the series and read the book. Absolutely loved it. So I was really excited to read this one, because I feel like Celeste does race relations so well in her writing. Like, she discusses them in a very raw and human way that it's just, it puts everything into perspective so beautifully. So I absolutely love that. And this one especially is sort of surrounding the death of Lydia, who is the middle child, and very obviously you'll see throughout the book she's the favourite child of, I can't remember their names, but it was Marilyn and James Lee. So basically Marilyn and James Lee are a interracial couple, making Lydia a mixed race child. She is one of three, and she is actually the favourite one, very obviously the favourite child of this couple. And the book actually starts with one of the most interesting opening lines I've ever read, which is, "Lydia is dead, but they don't know this yet." So already a lot of intrigue, a lot of suspense. So we sort of follow how the investigation goes in Lydia's sudden death and very surprising death. One thing I absolutely loved about it, like I've already mentioned with race relations, I think that's what the author does absolutely best. She has set this story in the 70s in Ohio. So just for a bit of historical context, the Supreme Court hadn't passed the decision to allow mixed marriages until a couple of years before this is set. So even then, even though this law had been passed, seeing interracial couples was already quite rare. It wasn't something you come across every day, but then to see these couples getting married and having mixed race children, it was completely unheard of. So we get a real look into the social dynamics surrounding this couple and how each one sort of reacts to the way they raise their kids because of the way they are being treated. So I think that's really, really interesting. It's just, there's just so much going on in this that I absolutely couldn't get enough of it. It's so brilliantly done. Okay, so I think I'm gonna have to leave it there. The sun is coming in, so yeah, I think it's just gonna slowly keep getting higher until I can't bloody see anymore. But yeah, that was everything I read in May. I can't wait to get stuck into June reads. I've got such a big list of books. Also, if you're not aware, Waterstones are having a clearance before their summer releases, so get your butt to Waterstones. I spent like about, I think it was under £20, and I managed to get 5 books, 3 hardbacks and 2 paperbacks, so I was very pleased with that. I'm really excited to get stuck into them, especially with bank holiday weekend as well, so I'll get a lot of reading done. But yeah, that was my May wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this style of video. Let me know if you'd want to see a little bit more of it. I just thought it might be kind of fun to jump into booktube slightly, just because I tend to be quite active on my Instagram about the books I read and what I thought of them, as well as on my Goodreads, so I will leave some links down below for you. But yeah, let me know what you read in May, what you absolutely loved, and what you plan on reading for June. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!